all. The investment banker J.P. Morgan had once said, "Go as far as you can see. When you get there, you will be able to see further." Our guest for today has come a long way, but his thirst to do more and learn more in the ever-evolving business landscape makes him an inspirational thought leader and a visionary. Mr. R. Mukundan, the Managing Director and CEO of Tata Chemicals, who has spent 30 years in the group, explains that to tread lightly is to not leave too much of an imprint so that there is a room for change and new things to grow. May I now invite Mr. R. Mukundan to the dais. Mr. R. Mukundan joined Tata Administrative Service in 1990 after completion of MBA from FMS Delhi University. He is a distinguished alumnus of IIT Roorkee, Fellow of Indian Chemical Society, and an alumnus of Harvard Business School. With over 30 years' experience at Tata Group, he has held various responsibilities across the chemical, automotive, and hospitality sectors of the Tata Group. He serves on industry forums and impacts organizations. He is currently Vice President CII for financial year 2024-25. May I now invite Mr. Amit Sarda, Co-Chairman, Young Bombay Forum, Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and MD Soulflower, to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I think it's my great honor to have Mr. Mukundan on the same dais where I'm standing. My first learning of what corporate governance is and how to conduct a board meeting is with Mr. Mukundan. I think I was very young when I was inducted at Bombay Chambers as one of the directors, and he was the president then. His 5-point agenda, giving exact timing for everything and coming to a conclusion in that prescribed time was something which was amazing for me to learn. My second experience about him, I'm sharing my experiences because, he's Mr. Mukundan, been there for so many years. Can't speak much, but one thing which I felt, what makes a person a tall leader? One of the meetings I was sitting with him, and he started speaking to me about all his failures, all his fears, all of these things. He showcased me a concept called a Johari window. I don't know if you remember, sir, or no. But that was so amazing. As a young lad, I was like amazed that somebody could speak so frankly about things which have not happened in the right manner. And you need to really have guts when you are in a corporate leadership, you are so tall. That is something which took me to think that what is leadership really? Leadership is what Mr. Mukundan has been doing at Tata Group for 30 years. Leadership is something which he has given us as Young Bombay Forum, because in his time, Young Bombay Forum became bigger. We started our Shadow the Leader program under his leadership, where we get an opportunity to spend a day with any tall leader like Mr. Mukundan, so many other tall leaders. I think it's not only my privilege, but it's a great honor for the whole Young Bombay Forum today to have him and to learn from his recent mistakes, recent wins, recent things which he has been seeing. I think that is what I'm looking forward to today. And sir, I'd like to invite you to speak. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I must tell you that I'm an accidental speaker here today. This venue got free with another program, and Sandeep will say, no, your anyway session was there. But now the consequence of that, as far as Bombay Chamber is concerned, every leadership session speaker would want a 5-star session like this, which we normally don't. We normally host it in our office. It is usually more interactive. It is right across the table. It is not this kind of a session where you are sitting and speaking from a podium. It's not supposed to be that. So firstly, thank you, Amit, for your kind words, and Sandeep for calling me. And really, it so happened that I postponed twice, which is why this session got landed today with a venue which is like St. Regis, which to me was, when he told me St. Regis, I told him something's happened to Bombay Chamber. Do we have so much of, we can't be extravagant, right? We need to be very frugal. So, but he said, anyway, it's available with no cost, so Thank you so much for this. See, I don't know what broadly, when I usually Bombay Young Forum, meaning there won't be so many experienced people. Sitting here are colleagues, very senior colleagues of mine, Rajiv and all senior people who worked with us sitting here. So I was telling Rajiv walking in that what am I supposed to speak to leadership with already people who are leading? I mean, it's very difficult to do that. Young Forum meaning people who are entering and who have got challenges, who got dilemma, you want to speak to them. So this makes it even more difficult in terms of what you want to engage and convey. But let me just make some opening remarks, and let's keep it as interactive as possible, because that way it will be clear what you are looking for and what I need to engage with. I think if you broadly look at it, we are looking the context we are living our times today. While everybody will say that time is very challenging, this time is, I think, in some fundamental ways, more challenging than before, because we never had geopolitics, which is controlling more businesses, as misaligned as today. So when I say misaligned, if you look at what has happened in Germany just a week ago in terms of elections, where unexpected end of the spectrum of the party got elected, tells you what's going on in the we can't say right or wrong, but that's the reality, right? What happened in France with, and they still don't have their prime minister appointed, because they're running the country or with the president with no prime minister. So we really have a confusing situation and you've seen our own elections where we were traveling through, we have businesses where we sell to every part of India, and I would pick up this issue of, jobs are a big issue, employment is a big issue in the market, and that backlash of that has really brought to the fore nobody is satisfied. And that has meant that if you look at the latest budget, huge amount of push and engagement in the issue of job, employment, skill. The government is really putting effort in that area. Not that we are not building many things, but the general geopolitics and general disaffection of the populace with the geopolitics is a given today. I think it's an underneath simmering thing. Some of us who may not have the pressure of being not getting close to have not, because most of them have some of the things going for us, we don't feel the pinch. But you walk outside, you'll see the pinch. So that's the context with which we have to deal with in what we are doing. The second piece is about the pressure which is coming on us from some of the changes which are unleashed by us. So, no one told us to go in the direction of sustainability, but I think we know if you don't go, you will have what has happened in Andhra. Gujarat has had floods. So we know the climate change is really on us. I think that's a force which is on us. But our ability to cope and find solution is, I think, limited. We have some solutions, but not everybody. And I don't think any individual or any organization has a complete solution to put forward and move forward. Which is why institutions like Bombay Chamber are important, because it allows a forum for collaboration, to new thoughts to emerge where companies and people can collaborate and exchange ideas and take that forward. The third piece is, while you call AI, which is to the fore, and ChatGPT has made it really the force to be reckoned with, but clearly the digital revolution is accelerating at a pace which is unknown. I just want to tell you, when I was in college, if you wanted to run a statistical modeling, linear regression program, you would take almost modeling that for 3-4 days and run it for a day and then see whether results are fine and then go back. I was sitting on a Sunday where something thought came to me, can I do regression of some data which was lying with me? And this is just nothing connected with business, right? I ran it 7 minutes, I had 3-4 models available to me. And this is in a power of a hand of an individual who only has a Mac computer with him. So I can tell you the immense amount of data crunching power which we have today. And you can certainly go to Gemini, it can write your letters. It can, in fact, Outlook today gives you, do you want me to generate a response? So you don't even have to generate a response, it is able to give. So the kind of power you have at hand is fairly immense. And that is going to drive a lot of change. So when I talk about sustainability, when I talk about the whole issue related to, let's say, digital, this is going to be on us for a long, long time. And as individuals, as enterprises, I think we have to contend with these two forces for many years. We cannot say, the time has come, we have mastered it. As far as our context in India is concerned, I think our industries, for example, have 3 or 4 broad issues. This is what I talk about in most places, which is what I've gleaned. In the community, when you go, it is going to be jobs. Clearly, the community needs and people need jobs. When you talk about companies, when you talk about enterprise, and when you talk about individual at an individual level, I think skilling is going to be a key issue, because you can never be prepared well enough for future at an individual level, which means you need to acquire new skills. It doesn't matter what position you hold, but I think acquiring new skills constantly is going to be an issue for people of any position. And we must be open to embrace that skilling at individual level, also at the community level. How do you skill? Then I think that there's this big issue in India of, I don't know what to call it. I want to call it as, how do you get back dignity of labor? And I want to sort of say that, our jobs are not going to be created by big enterprises, in the sense that more things are going to get automated, or they're going to get pushed out. Then the key challenge for us is that people with skill, people in micro and small enterprises, startups, whatever you want to call them. I mean, these are all companies which start out with less than 10 or 20 people. How do you make them the heroes of future? Because some of them will grow, some of them will not grow, but I think making them the heroes of future, making their life easy, is going to be something we need to deal with. And lastly, in the context of geopolitics, I think trade is going to be a big issue, challenge which you'll have to face. So these are broadly the issues and context which we need to navigate, and we need to go forward. And every company will have to deal with it in its own way. So we are also dealing with it in our own way. For example, I'm going to talk specifically about Tata Group and Tata Chemicals. We have clearly seen there are 3 kinds of businesses we have. So the way we have defined our business is broadly businesses which must completely change, whose business model has changed. Then there are businesses which have to contend with change and have to embed the change inside their business model. And lastly are the businesses which have to engage with change beyond themselves, which means they have to engage with the entire value chain to make the business model thrive. Now I'll just give each of the 3 examples what we are doing. If you look at the way our power company is changing, our mobility company, Tata Motors, is changing, we know their business model has changed. We know that they have to go to more sustainable business model. So Tata Power is mostly shifting to renewable. Tata Power is shifting to renewable. Tata Motors going to e-mobility. They're market leaders right across. I think that's the focus they have, because their business model is looking like it may change in 10 years, 20 years, but the change is on them. Then there are companies like steel and chemicals, or where our core won't change, but I think we need to embed sustainability, embed this whole point about decarbonization within ourselves. That is what we need to do in our operation. That's what we are doing. Lastly comes companies like Tata Consumer or Indian Hotels, which has to sort of make their entire supply chain more sustainable, which means they have to get into something called Rainforest Alliance. So we see broadly at the company level 3 broad models, and I think each one of you, whichever company you're in, you can think through which one it fits in. Either the model itself has changed, second is that you have to embed the change in, or you have to work with partners to make sure that you can drive change across the value chain, because internally I think you're only creating brand and experiences. In terms of at the level of individual, I think that is where a lot of issues of what Amit said is the driver, right? We all know all this is going on, but many of us don't change. And the reasons for not changing is not that we don't know the change is needed at individual level, at the team level. You can say there's comfort, but there's a scientific and psychological study to the way whole change process works. Of course, you can say, you go in a very structured way, why me and all that. I mean, there's a method which people have evolved. But there was this Swiss lady who was doing research work on people, on terminally ill patients. And she wrote a book. This is about terminally ill patients who the doctor is pronounced that, listen, I think you won't live. And then she found that there is a certain behavior pattern which at individual level some individuals exhibit, which leads them to survive, and many of them accelerate to the end which is predicted, correct? And then she was trying to say, what differentiates these two? And you take the human analogy to the environment which I spoke about, the need for change for organization. You can say either we change or we go to, if you look at India's top 50 companies or 500 companies, the names are all different now. Go 10 years back in Bombay Stock Exchange, the name won't be the same because those who didn't adapt and change have gone away. Those who have adapted have thrived. So this model could work for us, right? So the model she came up in a context was called Danda. Danda means a stick. But the way she broke it down was whenever confronted with new information, new model, the human psychology is first of denial. The first D, Danda, stands for denial. That, it is not true. It is not happening to me. And so you go to the doctors told you, hi, you come here. So doctors told you that, listen, you are having a real problem with your liver, stop having alcohol. Stop smoking, you could end up with cancer. The first thing is it's not happening. I'm very healthy as of now. What is it? So our first issue is denial. Then comes this point where it's really cancer is detected after you've been, or let's say you got heart problem. The next stage is, you fundamentally get what you call anger. There are 1 billion people in the world. Why has God chosen me to go through this suffering? So first is denial. And there are many people who don't go through denial. They straight away say, what next am I supposed to do? I'll come to that, what happens to them. Then there are people who go through the next stage of anger. It doesn't last long because how long can you be angry with yourself? You need to. So then human mind works a little bit crazily. It goes into a process called negotiation. It will go from one doctor to another. Doctor, read my report. I don't have heart problem. Go to another doctor, give me second opinion, give me third opinion. You go through this process, negotiation. And that industry does all the time. Government will come with new set of rules to say this is the change we need. Industry will run to Delhi to say, let me negotiate with the regulator to say, can life be made easy? We all run there. We've been through this as a sector and that's one big human nature to do. When all the doctors have said, listen, all your reports are reading the same and there is no change, you're going to go away in 90 days if you don't change your habits, then comes the next D. This D is called despair. Mera kuch nahi ho sakta hai. There are some bunch which goes into and you can stay in the despair and disappear. That's one option for you. But finally, those who survive go to the process of what is called as acceptance. So they accept the reality and then they go to the doctor and say, okay, I accept this is my problem. What do I need to do to change? So you go through this, and this danda is not only happening at individual level. I can tell you it must be happening in parts of the company. It must be happening in the entire company because entire board of director may be going through the denial. I don't know. Or it may be happening at the industry level. It's not happening to us. AI is not going to come and disrupt our business. We can still survive. Why do any change? We'll continue to use coal. I'm not saying, but companies can behave like that. But at that point of when you start accepting is then you can start making change. So I think this is one big piece. This lady's name is Elizabeth Kulber. You can go and see in what I narrated in a simple word. She has written many, many books. And you can read all her books. But if you read her 400, 300-page book, this is the gist of her book, what I explained to you. So in the last few minutes. So I think we all need to go through this. And the second piece is about illusion of power. See, we all have this illusion that we are so powerful that we can change the world, we can manage. I think that is another problem. Because one end of the problem is this point about not accepting, not facing the reality, right? Leadership is all about facing reality. The first step. If you actually see a YouTube video of Lego, just Google Lego, the rookie who changed the company. The second minute of that entire, it's a 3-minute video, by the way, YouTube, I can play it here. When I go to all management school, I play it for the kids and students because I use only three case studies, right up to, I think this started in somewhere in 20 years ago. I've continued to use the same 3 case studies. All 3-minute videos and not too long. How Lego changed, how Nintendo changed, and how Fuji films changed. That's all I sort of play. And the story for that incident also, I don't know how much time we have. Are we going to? 2-3 minutes. So anyway, let me wrap it up with 2 more incidents. Yeah. So problem with me is you give me a mic, I can carry on for a long time. So I'd been appointed as CEO. So and in our group we have this point about companies learn from each other. Tata Group is 50 odd big companies, multiple sector. So I got this call from CEO in those days of Tata Communication, Vinod Kumar. Vinod was based in Singapore, but he was holding this conference. He told me there's a leadership offsite in Jaipur, please come. My first reaction was, no, I'm not coming. Jaipur is difficult to get to. You've got to go to Delhi, then take out. In those days, direct flights were not available. Then he said, listen, I'm doing this in Rambagh Palace and there is a room booked for you if you want to come. I said, I will never get a room in Rambagh Palace. And if I know I'm not certainly going to hold my offsite there. So I told him I'll come. So I sort of landed up there. And 2 days before taking the flight, I got the schedule from him, detailed schedule. And to my utter horror, my session was just after Ram Sharan. Now, imagine Anil Kumble speaking there. If you had scheduled my session after Anil Kumble, I had to do something very different, I can tell you. Because, Ram Sharan is like one of the thought leaders in management. And so I went and prepared one slide, and that slide has remained true even today. Sometimes when you apply deep thought, we say things are changing outside. Actually, things don't change that fast. And it is our inaction which leads to a point where we can't take no longer action. So there are about 6-7 issues I highlighted there. For example, one of the themes which I highlighted sustainability, I highlighted economic change, wherein I said Asia will be growing fast, US will sort of reform itself, but Europe is going to be, and that is true, Europe has been perennially in some kind of a trouble all the way along. Also, this was a point about talent revolution that is on us. There's also the point about rise of the masses. On the rise of the masses, there's a very interesting story I usually tell. This is about, this is the time when Arab Spring had just started. And Time magazine had this point about the angry world. And today also you can see the effect of the social media and the use of social media in gathering moments. But to me, the first time I realized the connection of this was, actually, I'd been sent to St. Gallen about 7-8 years before the Arab Revolution. And one of the speakers in St. Gallen is a session like this, leadership session, where students organize it. And they call CEOs from all over the world. I was not speaking, I was one of the participants because I've been sent on a learning mission. And there was a guy called Sawaris. Sawaris' family in Egypt is one of the richest families. They're a construction family. They were in telecom business, you can Google that. So one of the Sawaris brothers came on stage, and in those days, if you recall the mobile when it got launched, it was like a thick brick. It was almost like a big handle, you had to hold it. It was like you could do weightlifting with that, the Motorola ones which were. So he held out one of them and he sort of said, do you know what I'm holding in my hand? To the students. These are Germans. This St. Gallen University is in Switzerland, but it's bordering Germany, and all the best of the German students come there. And everybody said mobile. He said, this is Allah the Liberator. And he said it 7 years before Arab Spring. So I always say this, that some people can actually see the change, understand the change and act on change. But many of us don't. And what happened in Bangladesh is a clear example of not even knowing. And I don't know how many people sort of, it's amazing that BIMSTEC conference was held, was going on when this whole incident was breaking out in Bangladesh. And the chairperson of BIMSTEC actually was Bangladesh in that conference which was being held. So can you believe that the undercurrent of the people was not picked up by so many? I mean, so sometimes you can go wrong. And that comes from an inner feeling that I'm all powerful. I mean, there is nothing which gives you that sort of feeling, because if you look at why Arab Spring happened, when you go to the depth of it, it's all because you feel as a leader or as a leadership team that you have all the power and you know better than everybody else. It is in that context I told him about Johari window. Johari window, all of you know the concept, correct? There are only two ways to improve and two ways to just keep yourself grounded. So if you want all the leadership lesson broken down into just one slide, one point, I would say follow what one of the guys sort of wrote many, many years ago. See, what Johari window talks about is there are only two ways to improve. One is to say you disclose what you are. You must self-disclose your weakness and strength. But many times we don't know our weakness because we can't see it. For that, if you want to see better, ask for feedback. Others can see it. When you go home, your spouse can tell you, you come and you just go and plonk and in front of the TV, don't even talk, you don't have any social skill. Obviously, we don't have social skill. Or it could just be that, why do you keep ordering? So I think these are things which traits in us because we are exhibiting the same trait. So asking feedback is one good way of getting to know oneself. And fundamentally what it does, self-disclosure, basically you are sort of opening up a transparent area between yourself. And as far as getting feedback also, you sort of, see, fundamentally Johari window, all of you know Johari window, then I will not speak. Huh? Okay. So Johari window is, fundamentally it starts with the concept, I know about myself, and there's a box called I don't know about myself. So on one axis. Self. What others can see about myself, what others cannot see about me, correct? So there's a box which I know myself and what the world can also see. That box which is at the bottom, where you can see and the world also sees, is what really is, a world at peace, because there is no conflict between you and what the world sees. Then there are traits which you don't know but the world sees. This is called blind spot. Everybody has a blind spot. You may not know what it is. And then there is something which you know the world doesn't know. These are dark secrets. You've done something, but you kept it ki chupa ke andar rakha hai aapne. There is a box which is you don't know and the world doesn't know. That is, skeletons in a cupboard. You don't even know, nobody knows what is in the cupboard. The only way you can do is by disclosing to the world, you are increasing the space of what the world knows about you. By seeking feedback, you are increasing the space of you knowing what the world knows about. So firstly, you are disclosing to the world and the other one is you're receiving information on what they know about you. And that way you are able to increase the space which is at resonance with each other, not at conflict. And what that does is it keeps you grounded. It keeps you completely grounded. And as long as we are open for feedback and as long as we are open for self-disclosure, which is why I think companies, for example, they have to disclose. They have to disclose every year their financial and non-financial performance. And why you have meeting with investors, why you have meeting with shareholders, why you have meeting with customers, why you have meeting with suppliers. It is for getting feedback from them. What is wrong with us? And same is the process companies have to follow. Same is the process individuals have to follow in company. When you sit with your boss or you sit as a team, I think this is the dialogue you need to have. That will reduce the whole, let's say, imagery of that I am all powerful, because suddenly you will see what others are seeing I'm not able to see. That itself grounds you. So all in all, I wanted to bring it back to human thinking. The human thinking on one hand is this resistance to change is grounded as a normal process. Everybody goes through it. Acceptance doesn't come easy. And the second one is that whole feeling of that the power is within us. But clearly, there is a lot more to learn, a lot more to get from humility and listening to others. So if you really ask me what good leaders do, good leaders fundamentally face reality and they listen and they pick up weak signals. They listen and learn. When I say listen and learn, they even look and learn. I mean, it's about spotting early and learn. And then they act. And then they seek feedback and they keep continuously improving. That's what they do. It's very simple. There's nothing complicated about it. So that's all I had to say. 2-3 stories and 2-3 points of view. And we can have an open session now. Thank you.
You always have spoken about change. You have spoken about such small things. I have so many experiences with you to learn many things. But how do you bring this culture in your organization? I understand Tata Group is very large. Tata Chemicals being a very industrial kind of company, you change it to a very consumer kind of company. From Namak to Desh Ka Namak. From your that Chana story, I still remember of Nagpur visit of yours. I think, how do you really bring that change to all your leadership and people below the line? So that is something which I think the audience will be very happy to understand from you.
So, Amit, I don't want to sort of repeat what I said because See, culture is, let me just tell you something. Culture is about set of actions which people do without any instruction book. That is what culture is. If you say this company has a culture of customer centricity, it means that even if there is no rule book, the first thing they will say, if customer is aggrieved, I will address it quickly. I think that is what the culture is. Culture is without, you don't need a rule book for it. The second thing about culture is, if they have to act, they act when no one is watching. It is not that they are watching when... So there are only two things. One is leaders can put down a set of rules, but then finally they have to act. If leaders act, everybody sees. See, world actually follows not your lips, but your shoes. So if you don't walk the talk, I think the team won't deliver. And secondly, I think what we call as see something, say something is one of the logos which we have. The other one which we normally say is that don't pass by. You see, you will always find non-conformities in every piece. But then as a leader, if you spot something and you sort of say that, listen, I think we need to address it and do it in a way that it is not... see, it's very easy to make the person feel small, but do it in a way that the person says action is needed rather than, it's not a commentary on the person. I think it sort of leads to change. So that really is the core of culture. How do you bring about culture? It is a long process, which is why they say culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can, and if you have a, see, no one told the Japanese when, how many of you been to Tokyo, Japan? So those who are gone, if you go to that, the train comes spot on time. Not a second early, not a second late. The train arrives, the people get off in a queue, everybody is out, and then the door shuts, the cleaning staff goes in. They rotate the seats. The seats are facing that way because the train has to go back. They rotate the seat, they clean it, they're out in 5 minutes. They come and bow in front of you. All the passengers waiting. And the people board, and the train is off exactly 10 minutes from the time it came back to its original destination. And it's absolute clockwork. You go to the airport, and this is the first time I observed this, right? I was waiting for a flight between Tokyo and Osaka. And usually here you go 45 minutes before they start boarding. The queue has already formed. 15 minutes before, there is no queue. And I went to the counter and said, is a flight delayed? She said, no, we'll board in another 5 minutes. 10 minutes is all we take to board. 777. And she just announced row number. They went row by the way, and there was no commotion. 6 people went forward. Again, another 6 people went forward. It is like a classic clockwork. I was seated in my seat and I looked around. Exactly the pilot announces 10 minutes later, all on board, we are ready to go. We are waiting for ATC. That's it. It tells you that, and this is not a, by the way, one thing I want to tell you, this is my first train trip from Tokyo. Usually it has a recline, seat has a recline, right? So I was sitting in a reclined position, so I got up. You have to collect your own garbage and take it out. That is another thing there. Nobody's coming to collect the garbage. Your seat has to be, so that everybody was doing, I also did. I put it into my bag. And then, you have to go search a dustbin and put it on yourself. The seat was slightly inclined, and I stood up. The lady behind me said, your seat. So I looked at my seat, there was no dirt. I said, I picked everything. She says, it's like this. Then I sat down, I made it to perfect straight and it was visible to me. Everybody had taken off the reclining into a straight position as they entered. And this was visible in the FIFA World Cup. You recall, what did the commentator say? The Japanese fans, when they come and they leave, the stadium has no footprint that they were there. So this is their culture. So when you talk about culture, that is really what it is. But there's nothing right or wrong. I find Indian and American culture very similar. We find pathways, how to figure out easy. But that is a great ability to innovate when things are not going well. You go to Japan and tell them, listen, I think, can we reschedule by 30 minutes? They'll be stunned. They'll be immobilized because they can't reschedule. To them, it means end of the world. Really? You want to reschedule? We can do next week. We can plan again. They'll go into planning mode straight away because they're not used to this. Whereas in India, we sort of schedule, reschedule, and keep moving forward. And same in US. We sort of are very, very adept at agile decision making. But some things are positive. So I just thought these are my broad observations.
Any questions for Mr. Mukundan?
Sir, you rightly pointed out the challenge of skilling. So since I come from a university, I am a professor of management from Narsimhanji University. I have gone there after 35 years in industry. So I find this dichotomy. Since all the industry leaders are here, I thought this is the right forum. I will escalate it to you. See, what is happening is that in the industry, when I was in the industry, we want the employees who are joining fresh from the colleges and universities with their technical or MBA degree, we want them like products. They should come in with ready-made skill to deliver. And the industries feel, and the university feels that is not our job. We will give them abstract knowledge. It is none of our business to make them industry ready. And we cannot do that also because technology is changing every day. How we can do that? So there is a big dichotomy which can come in the way of our demographic dividend and demographic disaster. If we do not mass skill our students in all the universities, they will be doomed with the backdated skill, and that is not going to make us winner. So the great demographic advantage on the basis of our youthfulness, that is not going to make us a winner. That will become a disaster. So what is your thought, sir, as a leading industry expert? Thank you, sir.
So there are two small questions. One is, sir, would you focus on or explanation on the exemplary leadership, sir? What it amounts to. Number two, sir, what qualities are needed for the youngsters to become MD or CEO of any big company, sir? And the third one is, sir, do you think that leaders are born or to be made, sir? Thank you.
Anyone else?
So, sir, I'm Nitin Jain. I'm partner at Agam Law, and I was fortunate to work under Mr. Mukundan's leadership at Tata Chemicals. And I still remember after completing 1,000 days of my business, I sought his advice. I said, sir, I've completed 1,000 days. Any advice? And he wrote one-liner to me: change your pads and go for the next round of the game on the pitch. And sir, my question is currently related to this generation gap as one word, which constantly keep hearing across the board in different sectors. And the Gen millennial, where they are working, they feel and they believe they are working very hard, very smart work. The expectation of appreciation and expectation of acknowledgement of the work which they have put in is very much more like a in demand, then amount of efforts which are put in may not be sufficient enough from the seniors' perspective. So bridging the gap of constant appreciation and acknowledgement versus getting more delivery value add and learning from this Gen Millennial, what is your advice on that? Thank you.
So I may not have advice. Firstly, on this education, skilling, I think what you mentioned, I think I couldn't agree with you more, and all of us are grappling with this piece. As I mentioned, one of the things we lack in India is dignity of labor, that there will be jobs which will need to be done with hands and skills and physical activity. We don't give it the kind of importance. I can tell you, many of us would have come in a car here. And what kind of respect do we give to our driver? No, many of us will be giving respect to our driver, but what kind of respect we give to our driver, I think we should reflect. Do we ask them, usne acha khana khaya kya, nahi khaya? How is the family? I think those conversations we normally tend to, but I think it starts with very simple thing, caring for people who are doing that work, and how do you bring dignity of labor? The point about, I think, this skill versus education. There are two tracks. I think in India, certainly the glory is of education, where you get a graduation degree and then you will apply for police force as a constable, as a beat constable also. There will be 20 lakh people applying for a job. Whereas there will be 100 jobs available at authorized dealer mechanic position, which will probably pay more than what this, but you know, the shortages of plumbers, shortage of electrician, but our project got delayed because we didn't have enough welders, 25 welder shortage at the peak. Rajiv knows very well, when we were setting up the boiler, I was negotiating with Thermax MD and Tata Chemicals MD, negotiating for a welder number we have to increase by 25 numbers. We were almost So that tells you that some jobs are in shortage and some there is an issue. The new education policy, which I'm sure you would have been one of the architects, and this went through a lot of, actually bridges the gap through NCVT guidelines. I mean, I don't want to take everybody's time on it. Fundamentally what they've done is every skill now has a credit. And each one of the credit can go towards fulfilling your graduation degree. And that's the flexibility they brought about. And it is not that you need to attend in classroom, but you can actually become a graduate with no university, but universities have to. But I don't know how practical, how quickly it's going to happen. The second thing they've done, of course, is the internship program. They've started with 500 companies. I think it's a massive game changer. I was with the Minister Mansukh Mandavia. Our time is up, very good. So yesterday only, and in fact, people asked him, why only 500 companies? He had a very nice answer. He said, listen, the top 500 companies probably have a work culture which everybody can appreciate. It's not that below 500 the work culture doesn't exist, but he was saying, listen, these companies have risen to the top because of the work culture, the use of word culture. So even if somebody spends 6 months to 12 months there, they will imbibe some of the good practices. So let us at least start there. We can expand the number there. The two other things they've done is about this whole specific issues related to employment-linked incentives, which have been started. Hopefully, companies benefit from that, and I'm sure when Bombay Chamber budget review happened, I think these would have been some of the key points we would have discussed. But certainly, these were some of the recommendations we were giving, like PLI give ELI. Our recommendation was even more focused in terms of saying that some of the sectors which have a lot of potential for job creation, like textiles, apparel sector, construction, electronics, our view was that why don't you give them incentives and on the basis of their turnover rather than anything else. But I think government has not gone there, so maybe this is the first step, so we should continue to engage. But more importantly, I think this gap of skill and is a cultural issue. It is also an issue related to, which means dignity of labor needs to be important. I want to tell you so I'd gone to Rochester because my son had gone to study there, so I'd gone to leave him there. And so he got into the hostel, and I was looking for a vehicle to go to the airport. So Uber came, so I sat in the Uber, and there was a person was probably around 60 was driving it. So I asked him, how was the day? And we started chatting. And then I asked him, and he looked like an Indian. So I asked him, up India se? India se. And then I asked him, what is your background? He says, I'm a doctorate. And And then he said, I also teach in the university. I also was working in Kodak. Kodak is now shut down, but I do take guest lectures. And then I asked him, why do you do this? He says, it keeps me grounded. I meet interesting people. I have nothing else to do. I'm alone. My wife has passed away. So I do it 2-3 hours a day. It doesn't cost me much. He had no shame. And imagine, he may be picking his own student up and taking and then charging them. But he had, so I just want to tell you the level it can go to. And it was not as if he needed the money. He was very clear about it. He spoke in fluent English, so I was absolutely... so that tells you where it can go. And on the other ones which you mentioned, sir, which is on fundamentally... how to get to MD. I only want to tell you, I never knew I will be an MD. I was only looking, as he was mentioning, 3 years or 4 years at a time. I mean, we all never start out. So we, as I always say, we all grow because of intelligent bosses who were kind to us, and teams which is very forgiving. Teams are also forgiving. They sometimes tolerate all your nonsense. So you need both. So it's a bit of luck. And of course, a lot of, I would say, personal effort. So what each one of you have done to get to the place you're in, obviously, you all wouldn't have reached that without that hard work. But I think hard work coupled with indulgent bosses and right environment is what matters. And in Tata Group, certainly, I think we pride ourselves in creating the environment where people can thrive. Then you spoke about... there's something about learning. What was it you raised? One was the second point after that you had. Born or correct. So I think it's a bit of both. I don't think your inborn traits, really you cannot, and these inborn traits are not coming at the time of birth, by the way. What is at the time of birth is that whether my eyesight is fine, am I colorblind or not, that is DNA. That you can't sort of... But I think there are some things which happen at formative years, and what happens through your parents, your immediate friends in the formative years, that remains embedded in your head, which is what, if you look at some of the psychology books and all, they ask you to go back to childhood to figure out what's driving your mind. And very important to know that, because that's what is called the hidden process of your head, right? But then I think leadership is about, there's something called crucible of leadership, which is to say that when the test comes, are you able to go through the crucible, that frying pan, and come out on the other side? Some come, some don't come. And the difference between those who come, those who don't come, is hardly 19-20 ka farak, I can tell you. So, the leaders are, some traits are born, but it need not be a handicap to take you to be a leader. So, really one of the things I would say is that, for example, you can learn so much from Mahatma Gandhi. He was one of the most inspirational leader India ever produced. 5 principles he said, and I think you can run the entire country, you can run yourself through those 5 principles. Nothing complicated, right? Ahimsa, which means you'll do no bad to anyone. Satya, which means basically you'll speak the truth. And which means face the reality, right? Another way of saying face the reality. Then he said Swaraj. When he said Swaraj, he actually mentioned, he didn't say Swaraj for freedom for country. He actually said Swaraj as an individual, I as an individual. So are you free from all longing? What Gita and everything says. But are you truly free? Or is your mind working that when can I get my next car? When can I get my next house? Then you're trapped. You're trapped inside. You're not free. So he wanted the mind and body to be free at individual level. By the way, if you read Gandhi, he's not actually fighting for country's freedom. He's fighting for individual freedom. Then he said something called Sarvodaya, which means whatever you do must serve everybody. So what is the use of this body, this mind, if it is not serving everybody? To the extent you can, who is that everybody? But then he added a caveat, which was the last of the 5 principles. You can actually read all books of Gandhi. I've now given a precise 5-minute description. It's called Antayodaya, which means even when you're serving everybody, look at the last person in the queue, is he being served? Antyodaya is exactly that. So he broke it down to, and when you read Gandhi's life, you would not know that he could have become father of the nation, because in the initial formative years, he was a barrister, he was a lawyer, he went through. Obviously, he had a lot of issues. His own mind was having a lot of, let's say, cobwebs and clouds. And he was, you read Macbeth and you see that illusions which are there. But he was able to clear it and move forward. And in fact, you can pick anyone like that, and you can actually have layers after layers after layers. I only picked one. And the beauty is to sort of peel the layers and get to the bottom and say that, what is he really trying to do? And there are great learnings from that. So I just picked one. So, and then you said about generation gap. I'm pretty sure our parent generation will be saying there's a gap with them, and their parents would have said. But this piece, see, one of the things which, I don't know, how many of you have interacted with, you go to YouTube and some presentation our chief economic advisor has written, Ananta Krishnan. He's a great scholar in my view. One of the things he has written is the challenge for the millennials. And in fact, it's a closed door, right? No media, nothing. No, no? Okay. So one of his charts, when you look at it, it's extremely stark. It talks about the danger for the younger generation. They may end up with suicidal tendencies. It goes to that extreme extent, right? Because this is a generation which is born native digital, addicted to mobile phone, addicted to screen, not having any engagement with another physical person, not going through the process of rejection, acceptance, anger, sadness, either individually or along with somebody. And his view is that this generation is a huge challenge, not just in India, around the world. And he has put a question mark. I was not clear about this till he presented some statistics. And these are statistics coming from places where this disease has been going on much more than India. India has just entered the disease. The loneliness of the millennials, their inability to even know what is outside of them, their inability to trust anything beyond Twitter or X or Facebook, the tribes they belong to, I think is, while it's an opportunity, it is a big danger. How do we break out of it? I don't know, but I'm just saying that you're only saying one part of the challenge. What do we do in the office? But the best piece in the office is that if you can give them those rare moments to engage beyond the screen, that itself will challenge and transform them. Because I've seen Rajiv, for example, go and talk to your team sitting in their workplace, right? I watch it all the time, and I'm very happy with what he's doing. Because an easy thing for him is to send an email and sit in the room, right? You come to office, you'll sit in the desk of one of his team, and there'll be a meeting going on in the open. And when I see it, I feel very happy. I sort of pass by and say, good, life is moving forward. Because these engagements are very critical. These, coffee machine engagements, we should encourage it. We don't do it. Unfortunately, what has happened after COVID is that we've gone to this virtual thinking that everything. So I am back to pastime, by the way, which means I'm traveling almost every week, 4 days I'm out. I've now made it back. I have to get back to the old stuff. Because what happened, COVID made you comfortable with virtual meetings. Then the instinct became that, why not virtual? Because travel is painful. But then I realized, listen, this is not giving real feel of what is going on. And when I spoke about jobs, these crises and all, is because you travel a lot, you figure out what's going on in the universe around, you talk to people. So getting off the magic screen is very important.
that brings us to the end of the session. I thank Mr. Mukundan for his valuable time and sharing his insights today. Now may I request Mr. Sada to present a memento to Mr. Mukundan. Thank you, sirs. Now I would like to invite Mr. Sandeep Khosla, Director General, Bombay Chamber, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you. So just to clarify, Mr. Mukundan was not the accidental speaker. He was the designated speaker, but the venue was accidental. So it rarely happens. We had already scheduled and we had invited him where we were supposed to have this yesterday on 3rd. And we had this function today where we had booked the entire day, the hall. We had a CSR conclave in the morning, an MSME. Now I'm just coming to the reason. So in hindsight, I think this was better because we wouldn't have been able to accommodate so many people here. So, thank you for coming, and it was a lovely session. We've been doing this now for the past 8 months. Last speaker, as you all know, was Mr. Hitendra Dave. And the next speaker is Partha Sarthi, one of our other past presidents. That's on the 25th of October. So for all those of you who are not aware, we are a very young chamber. In 2 months, we'll celebrate our 189th Foundation Day. So you all are all welcome. And the reason I say young is because one is the Young Bombay Forum. We're all young. We are all hungry for learning as to whatever knowledge we can, which will help us grow not only as professionals, but also as individuals. And also the chamber keeps on looking at the latest technology. So today's CSR session, for example, was on the digital era in CSR. Now, which was an eye-opener for a lot of us because CSR is not associated with digital. You're still dealing with everything manual. And right from how digital can be used to how AI can be used in CSR was something which was really fascinating to listen to. Again, some of the latest technologies which come in, the chamber is always the forefront, including our favorites these days, sustainability, ESG, as well as diversity and inclusion. So D&I and sustainability is something which the chamber is driving. And among all this, we pay special emphasis to MSMEs, which is that the larger members today handhold and see that how can they ensure that MSMEs grow. And today's afternoon session was on MSMEs. We had a packed house. We had various speakers coming in and speaking to them about what MSMEs can do, how they can even get finance. So if you're not a member of the Bombay Chamber, please become a member. There's a QR code here. And in case you're a member, keep on joining us for various activities, events which we do. Help us in also doing more of these. So thank you, Mr. Mukundan. Thank all of you for coming here, and thanks Amit for that wonderful moderation. Thank you, and please join us for dinner.